Good morning. So, we are dealing with feminism, and I remember that in the previous clip, I told you how Mary Wollstonecraft, how she reacted to Rousseau's different models of education for men and women presented in his treatise on education. So let us talk about some more feminist critics and some more female authors and how they opposed this deeply rooted gender bias in literature, in society, and in language. Now, Virginia Woolf is another name in this list. And I hope you remember that she wrote A Room of One's Own, and it was published in 1929. Now, in this book, she basically examined the problems of, women. I mean, what kind of problems women face. And in it, she advocated a balance between male self-realization and female self-annihilation. Now, try to understand. I'm giving you, two sentences, and both are having different, perceptions. The first one is male self-realization, and the other is female self-annihilation, right? So she advocated a balance between male self-realization and female self-annihilation. Means males basically live under the perception that just because they are males, they can do anything. And, they are proud of the fact that they are males. So to them, to be a male means to be capable, to be decisive, to be rational, and to be powerful. So they live under the perception that just because they are males, they are capable to do anything in the world, right? But on the other hand, females live under the perception that being females, they cannot do anything. They have certain reservations and they feel a bit down thinking that they are females and they have to follow certain do's and don'ts. They have to follow certain do's and don'ts, right? And to them, to be a female means to be irrational, to be weak, and to be powerless. So, what is the result? The result is that, just because they think in this way, they keep cursing themselves and they keep annihilating themselves. Fine. So Virginia Woolf feels that there should be a balance between male self-realization and female self-annihilation. Means, males must not think that just because they are males, so they are capable to do anything. And females must, they must get rid of the idea that being females, they are weak and subordinate to males. Fine. Actually, the fact is that Virginia Woolf basically she rejects the idea of a separate feminist consciousness, and she hopes to achieve a femininity of the unconscious so that there remains no conflict between male and female sexuality. Fine. Then, if you remember, she wrote an essay, and the title of the essay is Professions for Women. Now, in this essay, she talks about the problems of women writers, particularly the writers of her own time. And in the essay, she feels that the female writers of her time, they were basically imprisoned in the ideology of womanhood, the idea of the angel in the house. Now, what she is trying to say? Actually, she is trying to say that even women writers of her time, they portray such female characters in their works who fulfill the ideology of womanhood and the very idea of the angel in the house. Fine. It simply means that the women characters also follow the do's and don'ts set up by the male authors, and they never cross the Lakshman Rekha, which has been drawn by the patriarchal system of the male-dominated society. Means the women characters like to be called good women, they like to be called good mothers, and they like to be called good sisters and good daughters. Fine. So the essence is that female authors, they are trapped in this ideology, and they never portray resisting characters in their works. They portray such characters who are absolutely obedient, who are absolutely submissive, and they like this very role of submissiveness. Fine. And in addition to this, there were certain social taboos also, and these social taboos also prevented women from telling the truth about their experiences as a body. Fine. Now, Virginia Woolf feels that these problems can be sorted out only if women get social and economic equality with men. I mean, if they are given equal opportunities, I mean, as males are given different opportunities, in the same way, females should also be given equal opportunities. Only then, these problems can be sorted out. Fine. Then we find some male authors also who have raised, the issues of females. So I'll be talking about just two authors. The first one is John Stuart Mill, and he wrote the book The Subjection of Women, and it came out in 1869. And the other author is Frederick Engels, and he wrote The Origin of the Family, and this book was published in 1884. Fine. Now, what is the problem with these, male authors? Actually, the problem with them is that they have not been able to give a systematic analysis of the problems of, women. Fine. And, that's why they have not been able to give a meaningful contribution towards this movement, and that is, feminism. Fine. Then if you try to have a look at women's writing in the West, and if you compare women's writing in the West with feminism in the East, particularly in India, you will find that women's writing in the West has been, it has been writing oriented. Why? Because there is a very high rate of literacy in the Western societies. Fine. And feminism in the West, it has its roots in books and literature. But if you talk about some countries like India, you will find that particularly in India, we have a very strong oral tradition and a very high rate of illiteracy. So the import of these Western studies, it was confined mostly to urban areas, and it's only recently that awareness is felt in the rural areas, and that is also under the impact of the electronic revolution. Fine. So awareness has been here only in the urban areas, not in the rural areas. But in the recent times, in the rural areas also, you can find this awareness, and that is due to the impact of this electronic media or electronic revolution. Right. Then the other name is Kate Millett. And you know that she wrote Sexual Politics in 1970. And in this book, she makes a distinction between sex and gender. So, how can you determine sex and how can you determine gender? See, sex is determined biologically, and gender is basically determined culturally, socially, and psychologically. Fine. Then in the book, Miller says that males are responsible for the plightful situation of females, but this is just one part of the coin. The other part of the coin is that females themselves, they are also responsible for their plightful situation. Fine. And she analyzes the repressive role of the male and the submissive role of the female in the society. Fine. Then again in this book, I mean sexual politics. Kate Millett basically she posed challenges to the traditional norms of English studies in the 1970s, and she attacked the sexist assumptions in male authored text, and she introduced the term patriarchy. Getting my point? If you try to have a look at some texts written by male authors, you'll find that female characters have been represented as sex objects. They have been represented as commodity or things or sex objects which are meant to satisfy the lust of the males. Getting my point? So in this book, Millet basically she attacked the sexist assumption in male authored texts. Fine. Now try to have a look at the title of her book, and that is Sexual Politics. Now by politics, Millet means power, and power lies in the hands of males. It has been in the hands of males since the dawn of different civilizations. So she says that Western institutions, they have manipulated power to establish the domination of men and the subordination of women. Fine. So according to her, Western institutions, they have manipulated this power in order to establish the superiority of males and the inferiority or the subjugation of females in our society. Then she criticizes some authors like Sigmund Freud for his male bias, and she also criticizes D.H. Lawrence, Miller, and Mailer for presenting negative images of women in their texts. Fine. Then we can name some more authors like Shulamit Firestone, and she wrote The Dialectic of Sex, and this book was published in 1972. Then we have Toril Moy, and she wrote Sexual Textual Politics, and it came out in 1985. Fine. So I'm not going into the detail of these two books, but here, I would like to focus on two particular books, and these are, the first one is Language and Women's Place. It was written by Robin Lakoff, and it came out in 1975. And the other book is Man-Made Language. It was written by Dale Spender, and it was published in 1981. Fine. Now these two books, Language and Women's Place and Man-Made Language, you know, I mean, these two books focus on the gender bias in language. So this gender bias, it is not only in the society, it is not only in the cultural setup of the society, but it is in the language also. Fine. Now, if you try to have a look at the book of Lakoff, you will find that it is more descriptive. Fine. Actually, in this book, Language and Women's Place, she says that women use more question tags and hedges. Hmm. You can see so many women when when they are busy in conversation or whenever they make conversation. So you can notice one thing that most of the women, they use question tags and hedges. What types of question tags? Say for example, you can notice in their conversation stating, such question tags like, today you look pretty, aren't you? Today you look very cute, aren't you? So they basically pose question tags. And at the same time, they also use hedges like, you know, well, you know, so actually, I mean, these are the hedges. Well, you know, actually, so I mean, such hedges also, you know, such hedges have also been used by them or are used by them quite frequently. Now the question is why do they use more question tags and hedges? So the answer has been given by Robin Lakoff. And Lakoff says that women use more question tags and hedges simply because they are unclear or uncertain about what they say. No, it does not mean that, they do not have any kind of knowledge or they are irrational or they are illogical. Actually, the fact is that they are living in a society where they are made to feel that whatever they say, it may be true, it may not be true. It may be right, it may be wrong. Fine. So they live under a kind of, doubt. Fine. And that's why they remain uncertain and unclear about what they themselves say. And that's why they use more question tags and, hedges. Fine. Then if you talk about the other book that is Man-Made Language written by Daley Spender, this work is very critical, very, very critical. Fine. Now in this book, Daley Spender points out, actually she's trying to say she's trying to say that the masculine gender in English, it has not only been stable, but it has also been, dominant, right? Actually, you will find that when some words, when they are used in the masculine gender, they give a different meaning. I mean, a very respected meaning. And when the same words are used in the feminine gender, they give a very different meaning. And now the meaning becomes very, you know, it becomes somehow ugly and, it becomes somehow derogatory also. So let us try to have a look at some particular words and let us try to see, you know, how do they change, meanings. I mean, when they are used in the masculine gender, then the meaning is different. And when the same words are used in the feminine gender, then, the meaning is absolutely different. Fine. See, try to have a look at the words like Mr. and mistress. So the word Mr. is used in the masculine gender, and it is a very, very respected word. Mr. India, Mr. World, Mr. City, Mr. Class. So this word is very, very, respected. And when it is used in the feminine gender, then it becomes mistress. And you know who is a mistress? You know very well that a mistress is an illegal one. I mean, who lives illegally with some male, right? Then sir and madam. So when we use in the masculine gender, then the word is sir. And once again, the word sir is a very reputed word. And when it is used in the feminine gender, then it becomes madam. And I hope you know the original meaning of madam. This is basically, a madam is someone who is a brothel keeper. I mean, a keeper of a place, where prostitutes live, right? Then governor and governess. In the masculine gender, the word is governor, and once again, it is a very respected word. Governor of Uttar Pradesh, governor of Goa. Fine. And the same word, when it is used in the feminine gender, then the word becomes governess. And you know who is a governess? So a governess is a tutor in a private house. Fine. In the same way, courtier in the masculine gender and courtesan in the feminine gender. So a courtier is, someone who is in the court of any king. And courtesan, a woman who take payment, a woman who takes payment for services, given to someone. Fine. Then, wizard in the masculine gender, a wizard is a magician. I mean, a person who can do anything, who can tear the clouds, and who can raise storm in the sky. I mean, who can do anything. And in the feminine gender it becomes witch. So the very idea of a witch can terrify you. I mean, you can see an invisible image of someone, who is very old, with wrinkled face and long teeth, long nails, and a very dirty outlook. So it is in a very, it is used in a very derogatory sense. Fine. Then dog. And in the feminine gender, it becomes bitch. In the masculine gender, this is dog. And in the feminine gender, this dog becomes bitch. And you know what is the meaning of a bitch? Getting my point? So we can see how when a word is used in the masculine gender, it is not only meaningful, but it is dominant also, and it gives a very reputed meaning. But when the same word is used in the feminine gender, it becomes less valuable, and moreover, it gives a very derogatory meaning. Fine. So the fact is that this deeply rooted gender bias, it is not only in our society, it is not only in our families, it is not only in our day-to-day life, it is not only in culture, it is in the language also. Why was it done intentionally? So this is something for you. Do you feel that it was done intentionally? Remember, I told you in the very beginning that right from the beginning of this creation, all the philosophers, authors, writers, historians, thinkers, legislators, doctors, priests, and even language makers, they all have been males. So they basically molded the things from the viewpoint of male psyche, right? So I'm not going into this argument whether it was done intentionally or unintentionally. This is up to you to come to some conclusion, right? But my point is that there has been a deeply rooted gender bias in this language also. Getting my point? Actually, the fact is that we can find this gender bias in our families also. Now, tell me very frankly, how many women are there who, after marriage, wish for a female child? I think 80 or 90% women wish for a male child. You can deny this fact, but the truth is that most of the women, they wish for a male child. Getting my point? Then I can quote so many examples from the day-to-day life. Fine, but in the clip, I think it's not somehow suitable. Um, I'll talk about some more things in the next clip, and I think this is enough for today. Thank you, and good day. Take care. Good morning.